Hi everybody from the Western Ag Network. I'm Russell Nimitz, and thank you for joining us for another On the Road segment from here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show here in New Orleans. By the way, a special thanks to our sponsor Neogen for sponsoring this week's coverage of all of our radio and television and social media reports. You know, Neogen, be sure to ask about their iGenity beef tools, which of course can help improve your bottom line and overall profitability. Learn more at neogen.com. Well, one of the fun things about the NCBA trade show is getting the chance to check out all the latest and greatest in ag products, technology, and services. And really, when it comes to profitability, you know, embracing and even utilizing some of this exciting technology helps get you one step closer to profitability. And in the area of water management, one of the companies this year here at the NCBA trade show in New Orleans was Ranchbot Monitoring Solutions, and with us is their co-founder Andrew Coppin, all the way from New South Wales, Australia. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us. And I guess just tell us a little bit about Ranchbot Monitoring Solutions and why it's so important when it comes to the area of water management.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Great to be here. We're enjoying the show, and it's a pleasure to visit with you. So, yeah, I mean, obviously water is the lifeblood of all agriculture. Critically important for all forms of agriculture, but it's like the most poorly managed asset on the ranch. So 6 years ago, my co-founder Craig Hendricks and I started thinking about how could we provide a service for ranchers that would allow them to better manage their water resources and be able to know when there's a problem, because all of us as ranchers spend a lot of time driving around checking water that fundamentally doesn't need checking, but the 5% of times that it does is critical, and we all know that. So our device, Ranchbot, allows ranchers to see all of their water resources across the ranch in real time from their cell phone or their computer. So over the morning coffee, you can check out what's happening, and if nothing's happening, you can reallocate your time to other important tasks, and if there is a problem, you're going to know about it as soon as it happens.
Well, you and I have been visiting about Ranchbot and just the exciting opportunities for livestock producers, and you're finding tremendous success with this technology down in Australia. I mean, just talk about how many ranches are utilizing this technology, and how many head of cattle and head of sheep that are truly being monitored through this.
Yeah, so over the last sort of 4 or 5 years in Australia, obviously we had a massive drought and water management became like the critical thing, and as we know, ranchers are always focused around what's important and critical. So we started having the conversation about better water management. As I stand here today, we're on it's like 4,000 ranches, or we call them cattle stations, across Australia, and sheep stations, overseeing the water and infrastructure of circa 10 million beef cattle and like an equivalent number of sheep. So it's a big responsibility to help those ranchers oversee that water, but what we keep consistently here is that we're giving them peace of mind, saving them an immense amount of time both travelling and in gas, and allowing them just to run a more productive and profitable operation.
Well, you and I have been visiting too. I mean, it truly is a fairly simple application to operate, install. I mean, if you can turn on your phone and you've downloaded some of the other apps that you're already using, I mean, it is simple as that to get going with this.
Yeah, well, we sort of found that a lot of the technology in the past was coming out of the oil and gas sector or something, so we built something from the ground up, by ranchers, for ranchers, with a basic premise. If we can't put it in the box, send it to a rancher, have them open it, not read the instructions because we don't, and install it on their own in 10 minutes, turn it on and it works, then don't send it. So that was our premise on everything that we've done at Ranchbot and everything that we do. And then, we're a service-focused technology company. So, the phone numbers in the website, my team are there to support the ranchers, and, that's helped us grow immeasurably because, as we all know, you know, when I'm trying to ring someone for help on the ranch, it's when I've got a few spare minutes and I don't want to be put on hold and I don't want to go to a call center. I want to talk to someone that can help me. So, you know, service-focused technology, design by ranchers for ranchers, that's been our big story.
Well, and just like our smartphones and other smart devices, I mean, this piece of technology, I mean, there's other applications that are available through this, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, what happened, of course, is the minute we started monitoring water and people weren't driving around and checking it as much, they started telling us the other things that they wanted to check. And those sort of things were like, I want to check my rainfall in my rain gauges because I'm not emptying them as much. And I want to know my pressure and my flow in my pipes. Or I'd like to have a camera to be able to take a photo of my troughs and my infrastructure. So we've continued to build out a series of applications and technology that talk to Ranchbot, and now we're working with third parties and collaborators on weather stations, on soil moisture probes, on things that are driven by our customers' needs for them. Again, on that premise, we've got to be able to send it to you, install it yourself, turn it on and it works. So yeah, it's really exciting about what the future holds here for ranching and the ability to automate functions and applications across the ranch.
Yeah, it really is. And we mentioned the success and just the sheer number of operations that are using Ranchbot in Australia, but we should also mention that quite a few livestock operations already here in America, more specifically Western America, like states in our coverage area, are utilizing it.
Yeah, so over the last 18 months, I've driven like 10,000 miles across the country, meeting with ranchers and associations and other folk in the sector to really deeply understand the challenges and make sure that they're aligned with our thinking. So we're now building Ranchbot in Dallas, Texas for this market. And we're on about 200 ranches as I stand here today, and there's a lot of interest. Obviously, water management across the country and having better data and information about your water is a very, very key thing.
Well, as you alluded to earlier, Andrew, I mean, water truly is the lifeblood of all of us in agriculture, especially livestock producers across America, but especially in the arid West. And it really is a simple installation. It's easy to operate, and just about anybody, even grandpa and grandma, can probably figure out how to get this on their phones and other smart devices.
Yes, of course. It's not exclusively for the next generation of ranchers. I think we had a 80-year-old rancher buy his first smartphone the other day to run his Ranchbot operations. He set it up on his own and sent me a message saying, Andrew, this is the best thing I've ever done in ranching in the last 30 years. So, you know, and it's running at $1 a day for the service. So, you know, the cost, I don't know how far you can get in the F-250 for $1 these days, but not very far.
You know, I don't want to get in the economics and the US dollar and exchange rates. Not very good at math. Andrew, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Most importantly, thank you for coming to New Orleans and joining us here at the Cattle Industry Convention NCBA Trade Show, talking about some very, very exciting technology in the area of water management, helping all of us in the livestock industry become more efficient and hopefully at the end of the day become more profitable. Get more information online about Ranchbot simply by visiting ranch-bot.com. Stay with us. We're going to have more from New Orleans right after this.
You're working to preserve the ground for the next generation. Shouldn't your cow herd be built for the future too? Igenity Beef provides DNA testing for 17 critical traits on a 1 through 10 scale, along with indexes and parentage. This tool aids in selection and management of commercial females and provides marketing opportunities to build your herd for the next generation. Use code RADIO to get 20% off your next Igenity Beef order. Learn more about Igenity. Go to neogen.com or call 877-443-6489.
Well, producer leaders are out and about here in the Big Easy, and joining us from Montana, the second vice president of the Montana Stockgrowers Association, Mr. Turk Stovall, joins us. And Turk, coming down out of Montana, representing the Big Sky State, what are some of the key things that the Montana Stockgrowers is working on here this week, being a voice for producers back home?
Well, what's really important is we get to all of the committee meetings, and we we look at all of the policies that's being discussed and really try to make sure that Montana's interests are really well represented.
Now, of course, a lot of news this week in regards to the cattle inventory report coming 3% below for the entire herd. We had the cattle facts presentations also this week, forecasting higher calf prices as well. As a producer, as a feeder, as a leader in the industry, what are your thoughts on the next few years ahead?
Well, it sure looks like the cow-calf sector is going to start getting back in the driver's seat, and we really need that. You know, especially in our region of the United States, we've gone through some really tough years. This drought has just exhausted a lot of producers, and we've seen it in our area, a lot of mother cows leave the state. And so we do see, you know, there are some operations starting to say, hey, what can I do to keep some of these heifers here? And we're starting to see these heifers come into these backgrounding yards in Montana, and we do think there's going to be some more heifers bred.
Now, of course, input costs are on the tops of everyone's mind, and corn was also projected to be a factor in the months ahead. Having a feed yard, but also understanding the feeding industry in the Midwest, where so many Montana cattle do go to be finished. How is that going to be an impact as well?
Well, of course, input prices are just a big deciding factor, and it really, obviously, every person's in a different financial position. And I think it's all examples, Lane. I mean, just in our world with our feed yards, we've seen to where some producers, they're breeding heifers, and you know why they're breeding heifers? It's not because they're trying to grow their herd; they're trying to get their herd back. Mm-hmm. And so that's been somewhat of a pretty sobering discussion sometimes.
Now, for yourself, what are some of the key highlights? I know you attended policy meetings and whatnot, but what were some of the key things? Did Montana bring down any policy for this year's convention, or just to share back home, kind of
Sure.
what some of those policy talks were?
You know, one thing we wanted to highlight of many things, but one of the things is we wanted to highlight Montana Stockgrowers lawsuit with the BLM. And in Montana, the BLM made a decision relative to the American Prairie Reserve and their bison grazing, and we just wanted to make sure that they were following the same rules that all ranchers have to follow, and we want to stick up for Montana ranchers, and we believe that we have a really strong argument there that will hopefully prevail. But with that said, we don't think that's isolated to Montana. You know, ranchers, especially in the West, depend on public lands. And this is a big issue that we all really need to work together and be informed on it. And we're really trying to bring that message to other ranchers here too.
Well, Turk, thanks for taking a few moments with us here today as we have our conversations on the road at the 2023 Cattle Industry Convention. Again, Turk Stovall, Second Vice President of the Montana Stockgrowers Association.
You know, one of the things we hear a lot here at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show is wherever it's at, this year here in New Orleans, next year in Orlando, Florida, it's a great opportunity for folks to come together who are like-minded, to network, share relationships, build relationships, and of course enhance those already existing relationships. And here in New Orleans, I was able to meet an Alberta cattleman, Miles Woke. And Miles, you were telling me you and quite a decent-sized delegation from Alberta came down here to New Orleans. Tell us what brings you back here to the Cattle Industry Convention.
It's an amazing opportunity. We had a chance to meet with 4 different states individually, but several states at a lot of the sessions we've gone to. We're all, like you said, like-minded individuals. We all have one goal in mind, and that's to better the cattle industry, to make it sustainable for future generations. And the trade show is amazing. Your sessions are amazing. It's great to hear all that's going on in DC, and it's great to bring feedback back to Alberta. We have 46% of Canada's cattle, and we have 85% of the processing. So we like to think that we need to know what's going on in the rest of the world as well, and we've got a great contingent and a great bunch of states to do it with.
Well, before we talk more about some of those state meetings you've had here in Louisiana, let's talk a little bit more about this convention. I mean, one of the highlights you said, and you've told me earlier, is the educational opportunities.
It is. It's fantastic. You know, business risk management is so important going forward. It's important for lending. It's important for everything you do in your business. And the U.S. does such a great job. They've got great providers, and they offer things that we don't get in Canada. So we come to bring those things forward, bring them to our provincial governments, and take them federally so that we can do some great things along for our producers that you guys are doing down here. And that's one of the main reasons to come down this, as long as, you know, seeing a lot of the great people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, Miles. I mean, the agricultural industry, whether it's here in the United States of America or in Canada or even down in Mexico and around the world, we truly are a small minority. But with that said, though, we're a small minority that is very like-minded, and that's why we are truly like trying all to work together for the common good.
My wife is the chair of the Alberta Beef Producers, and I also sit on the Canadian Cattle Association as co-chair of the Animal Health and Care and the Environment, two very important issues when you talk to the public. And we had a chance to sit down with Mexico and the US and Canada. We had a trilateral meeting early Tuesday morning, and it's amazing. North America is a small scope when you look at it, because we all have the same issues. We all have to go to government and lobby for some good things. We all have the same disease type issues when it comes to it, and we have to look after trying to get response plans for that. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, and you said your wife is a member of the Alberta Beef Promotion.
She's the chair of the Alberta Beef Producers.
Which is pretty cool. I was just going to talk a little bit about the checkoff program, whether it's down here or north of the border. I mean, it's doing some wonderful things, isn't it, as far as getting beef cattle producers' message out there to the consumer?
Well, it needs to be. You know, we had an issue with with them trying to label hamburger as a junk food. That's what our government tried to do a number of months ago, and we knew that we are such a small percentage of the population, we'd have trouble going to government ourselves. So we took it on Facebook and Twitter and everything else, and we put a petition out there, and the Canadian Cattle Association sent every email to every office they could in Ottawa. And man, the consumers jumped in, and within 2 weeks, they took that off the table. Without them, it's a long drawn event, but we need the consumers. We want the consumers to know we do an amazing job each and every day. We are animal husbandry, and what we do for the land to make it sustainable and make this last to future generations. I just had a grandson, 6 generations.
Wow, that is incredible. Now, you said that you had some state level type meetings with different cattlemen and cattlewomen from down here during your time in New Orleans. One of those groups you met with was the Montana Stockgrowers Association. I guess, if you don't mind, just tell us what some of the discussions were during your lunch meeting here in the Big Easy.
What one of the gentlemen said, sitting right next to me, he said, we're all the same. There's a border between us, and even if you look provincially or state borders, we're all trying to do the same thing. So we talked about cattle moving back and forth. We import a lot of cattle to feed there. We export some into here. We enjoy the relationship we have. In the drought, they had a little more of a drought a little sooner than we did. They come up, get a bunch of hay in our country and take it down. We're all there to help, and it's commerce. And it's like Todd Wilkinson said this morning, it's all in the speed of commerce, and it's all in the betterment of the cattle industry.
Well, and life is too short. Our ag industry is far too small, really, to be looking at each other as enemies, whether we live here in the States, in Canada, or even Mexico. Here in North America, we do need to try to work together.
We do, and we're trying to get a response plan in place in the case of any type of a disease issue, because we all know that cattle move north to south so fast and so often that if something is to hit Mexico or something's to hit Canada, it's only a matter of time. So we all have to be on the same page, and it's amazing to sit down with these state individuals and with the NCBA individuals and the veterinarians that are employed by all three of the organizations in these countries, that, man, when we flip a page, we know what to do, we know when to do it, and who to call to make commerce get back to normal as quickly as we can.
So Miles, as we kind of wrap things up here, I mean, what would you say to other cattle producers that are either listening or watching us that who have never been to a cattle industry convention or NCBA trade show?
I would say there's 8 acres of booths and educational, lots of data, lots of information. If you want to know about anything in the cattle industry, it's here. And it's drawn together in one place. I urge anybody from Canada or US or Mexico to come to Orlando next year, because this one's almost over, and it was amazing. New Orleans did such an amazing job at hosting it. I mean, right from the hotels to each and every restaurant, they were always looking after the cowboy hats. We had a place to put our cowboy hats when we ate.
Right.
So, I mean, doing great. And I'd say come down to each and every one you can, because you're going to meet new people, you're going to meet old friends. And I met a lot of people from all across the U.S. I've been coming here at least 7 years, my wife and I, and we get new friends every year, and you remember them, and you keep in contact with them, because you never know what information they might need or you might need to help the next generation along with this in this industry. It is a small one.
Yeah, and like I said at the top of the show, I mean, it's all about networking. You and I hadn't even ever met till this morning, and it's a pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Again, we've been visiting during this part of the segment with Miles Woke, an Alberta, Canada cattleman. You know, he does a lot of great things for the beef industry north of the border. He's also a member and a leader within the Canadian Cattle Association. Just one of the many, many thousands and thousands of people who have journeyed this week to New Orleans, Louisiana for this year's Cattle Industry Convention and Trade Show. That's going to wrap things up for our coverage from here in the Big Easy. But before we go, certainly want to throw out another big thank you to Neogen for sponsoring all of our coverage here on the Western Ag Network this week. You know, be sure to learn more about their Identity Beef, genetic tools to help improve your bottom line. For all the details, visit them online at neogen.org. Well, that is going to do it for this segment of On the Road. Again, we've been here in New Orleans at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. For Lane Nordland, Paul Humphrey, I'm Russell Nemitz for the Western Ag Network.